on, and then there's a power button that also says on. You gotta have them both on, otherwise it doesn't work. So, my name is Silas. Is this where the online crew sees me? If I'm over here, how far do I go without them seeing me? Is that too far? Well, hello, online crew, and if you're joining in, glad to have you as well. Leave a comment, message somebody here, stay connected. So glad you're with us. I am the worship director here at River Lakes. A few of you, if you are in, is it juniors? Who did I have when you were junior hires? Maybe seniors for a little bit? Are you a senior?
No.
I'm sorry, dude, you're right. No, I'm a freshman. You're a senior freshman. I don't know what that means. Yeah, I had you for like a week. And then Bill arrived, which is awesome. So you guys are all freshmen. Who are the freshmen? Freshmen, nice. Oh, that's great. Who are the sophomores? The freshmen are way more excited than you. Yeah. Who are the juniors?
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. And who are the seniors?
Yeah.
Hey, Quinn! Give it up to Quinn. I love the change. I don't mean to put down the it's just Quinn's voice was like, yeah! Where are the seniors? Yeah! It's great. I love it. So we're in a series right now, and the big idea for the series is that God wants you to have big faith. God wants you to have big faith. What is faith? I don't know if this has been super clarified recently for you guys, but what's faith? Any ideas?
Faith is you're giving your life to God.
Okay.
For Him to control.
Giving your life to God from control. I love it. Yeah?
The willingness to trust and not be scared to trust. Like, if God was like, hey, do this, you're like, okay, I'll do it. No questions asked.
Yeah. Willingness to trust and trust to the extent that that becomes the authority, right? That's great. Yeah?
It's like trust and obedience.
Nice. Hey, that's great. Did you hear what he said? He said, trust and obedience in like one thing. There's some proud parents right there, yeah. Trust and obedience in one thing. That's great. Faith, I think all those definitions are excellent. Reason for belief. Faith is your reason for belief. And those beliefs lead to action. What you believe, if it doesn't lead to action, what purpose does it actually serve? If you say you believe in something, but it's not leading to anything actually happening in your life, what purpose does that serve? I think the chair illustration is something that I always appreciated as a student, where somebody would bring up a chair and they talk about it. And like, can you guys give out reasons? I mean, this is ridiculous, but give out reasons for why you would be willing to sit in a chair. Why would you be willing to sit in a chair?
It looks stable.
It looks stable.
I don't have to stand.
I don't have to stand. Amen to that.
Because it's uncomfortable to stand when you're playing video games.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah, it's just better to sit when you're playing video games. I mean, we could look at one of these chairs, and they look like they're made out of some super strong metal. Let's say somebody comes along and they're like, hey, everyone that's standing is going to be like, I don't know, some terrible things. They're going to eat like ghost chili peppers or something, you know? Like, what would you do? You'd sit down in the chair, right? And you would know that chair is going to hold you up, right? Now, if somebody comes in and says that, and you're like, well, I believe the chair will hold me. I believe it will, but I don't know. It's nonsense to not actually trust that chair and sit in it. When you see it, you've observed it, somebody else can explain it to you, and all it takes is sitting in it and you're avoiding that ghost chili pepper, which sounds like a terrible thing. I'd hate to eat one of those. Faith is reason for belief that leads to action. I think the leads to action portion, sometimes we can find out what we truly believe by looking at what we do. Does anyone still watch Batman? Batman was like the thing. The Christian Bale Batman, right? Anybody?
It depends if it's R-rated or not.
It's not R-rated. That's a great guardrail. We're going to talk about guardrails in a second. It's not R-rated. Has anyone seen the Christian Bale Batman? Oh, goodness. What's happening to culture? Anyone heard his voice? He's like, I'm Batman, right? All the time. So there's a Batman quote. It's not really a Batman quote. His girlfriend says it in the movie, but she says, it's not who we are underneath, but what we do that defines us. He says, It's not who we are underneath, but it's what we do that defines us. Are you just, yeah?
Who's Christian Bale?
Who is Christian Bale? Answer, Batman. Christian Bale is an actor. He played Batman. Yeah, he did a good job. He did a good job. So today we're talking not about Batman, but about providential relationships. And as we're talking through this, I want you guys to be like actively taking note. I'm going to kind of talk through, and you're going to think of different relationships. You're going to think of different friends, different people that influence you in your life. And I don't want you to let that slip. I want you to really take mental note of who pops into your mind when I talk about different people, different situations. We're talking about providential relationships. And the big point about relationships is our relationships always impact our faith, for good or for bad. Our relationships always impact our faith, for good or for bad. Not sometimes, not some relationships, but relationships just simply have an impact on your faith. Especially those that are closest to you, that you allow to be influential to you. So let's pray real quick, and we will dive into this. Would you bow your heads with me? Father, I thank you and praise you for just seeing the friendships in this room, for seeing the way that you've drawn these students together, the way that you've shepherded them and cared for them. God, I pray that they would rest in your grace. I pray that as easy as it is to sit in a chair knowing you will hold them up, I pray that they would trust in you, knowing that you will hold them up, that you will sustain them, that your grace is sufficient, regardless of what circumstances are today in their life. God, you are good, you are gracious to us. Would you be glorified by your word preached today and by your name being worshipped. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen. So, relationships, I'm thinking about back when I was a student, and maybe you can relate with this, but the greatest trouble that I ever found myself in, it's one of two things. Either I was in isolation, I was by myself completely, or I was in bad company, and that's it. Either you're by yourself, you're isolated, you're cut off from people who would otherwise influence you toward something good, or you're with people who are willingly, excitedly, happily influencing you towards something that's dangerous, that's unhelpful, that's damaging. That's the greatest trouble that I got into as a kid. I think I had a season as a kid of the isolation portion in particular, where there's this feeling of just being kind of cut off. This feeling of I know people, by name. I'll hang out with people. I'll, play games with people. I'll whatever. But this feeling of isolation, like nobody really knows me. And there was a time of just distance from people and from community. And honestly, a huge part of God's grace in my life was I grew up here at River Lakes. My first time leading worship was with Craig. Where's Craig go? There's Craig. Was with Craig in the junior high room. It was right after the community center got built, and I got to play guitar in the junior high room, and it was sweet, and I loved it. And I played a lot of music, and I started playing more and more in junior high. In high school, I came up here, and there was a great guy named Mason, and he just said, "Hey, I saw you play guitar. You want to join me? You want to play worship one morning?" And I was terrified. It was like the scariest thing in the world to be in the high school room as a freshman playing on the stage. Oh my goodness, it's so scary. But it was so good. I was so glad to have that opportunity. Just to enjoy music. I've always loved music. It was a meaningful, impactful time for me to get connected and for people to start to get to know me and for me to be influenced by them coming into my life. After that, I ended up joining this guy's dad's D group. You still call them D groups, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I joined this guy's D group, and that was a kind of unusual group because there's this feeling of, well, if they're my friends from church, they've got to be good influences. That's not true. There still needs to be some wisdom that's exercised. There still needs to be some, wow, you guys are all laughing like, I've got only bad influences in my life. That's not true. We've got lots of good friends. And so it was kind of this like process of watching where my friends were, watching kind of where they seemed like they were heading, and experiencing that with some friends that I was meeting, whether that was at church or friends of friends from church, suddenly you find that you're having conversations with people about things that you never thought you'd be talking about. And that right there, earlier I threw out guardrail. I don't remember what the context of that was, but I said we're going to talk about guardrails. R-rated movies, yeah. Don't watch R-rated movies, generally.
Unless your mom's okay with it.
Wisdom, yeah. So lots of guardrails that we need in our life. And that's one guardrail that I would just give to you guys. If you find that you're having conversations with your peers, and stuff's coming up in conversation that just in recent history you'd feel like, I wouldn't talk about that. That's not something I'm comfortable venturing into. Why am I growing comfortable with it now? That should be a guardrail. What does a guardrail do?
Prevents you from doing that.
Prevents you from doing bad. Yeah, I mean, you think about driving, right? And you're driving around a corner and you're like veering. Do you want to get as close as you can to the guardrail?
No.
Yikes. Don't let this guy drive. Yeah, proud moment, gone. Yeah.
A guardrail keeps you from driving off a cliff if you're reckless.
That's right, for sure. And you want to stay away from that guardrail. Guardrails aren't there for you to bump up against for fun. I mean, they shouldn't be. They're not there to bump up against for fun. They're there to cause a small accident so that a major accident doesn't happen. A guardrail, we're supposed to stay away from that because of what's on the other side, right? And I think that's a guardrail that can come up in your relationships when you find yourself ready to talk about things that historically you would not have talked about. Another guardrail, look at the kind of friends that you have and what they're doing, how they care for themselves. The best friends that you can have care for you. The best friends you have care about who you are, care about where you are. They'll check on you. You know, when life's getting hard, if there's something difficult going on in your life, they will check on you. They care for you. Now, one way that you can tell if someone's capable of caring for you and being a good friend, being a healthy friend, is if they themselves care for themselves, if they're taking care of themselves, if they're making wise choices. If they don't care about themselves, they're not going to care about you. It's kind of a harsh reality. You may enjoy their company, but they're not going to care about you. That becomes an incredibly dangerous friendship because now you're in a situation with somebody, you enjoy being in their company, they don't take care of themselves, they're not going to take care of you. That's one of the most dangerous settings I think we can be in at any point in our life. Another guardrail, if they are not caring for themselves. So, I mean, maybe you relate with some of this, that you've seen friends in your life who seem to live a little bit closer to the guardrails. Maybe they like to slam against the guardrail. Maybe they just wish the guardrail wasn't there. That gets dangerous.
Yeah, that can be suicide.
Yes, certainly. It can be all sorts of things that are dangerous and harmful. And we need to watch out for those influences in our life. I would encourage you guys to do that. Think about who your friends are. And if you can do a weird little exercise with me, think about if you were really to just look at your friends and think about where you would anticipate they'll be in 5 or 10 years. How old are you guys going to be in 5 or 10 years?
24.
24. Oh, that's old. Blah, so old. Yeah. In 5 or 10 years, you'll be 24 and ancient and rotting away. It's terrible.
Yeah, same.
So you guys will be in a range of how, like 13-ish? You guys are 13 to 17-ish? Are there no, like, freshmen who are like, hey, I'm 12. I don't know. 14 to 18-ish in 5 to 10 years. You could be as old as 24 to 28. I'm 27. You could be as old as me. Yikes. Now, where do you think that these friends that you're looking at, where do you think they might be in 5 to 10 years? And if they're your friends, if they're influencing you, I mean, you can look at somebody and think, man, I see you making the choices you're making. I see you going to parties. I see you making choices that are damaging to you. And maybe it's enjoyable, maybe it's fun, maybe there's something appealing about it. I get that. The reason it's appealing is because we're sinful, because we're broken. And so we have these things that we want to do, these things that we want to pursue that are just simply damaging. It's like poisoning yourself. And you poison yourself for 10 years. And you go down the road, and I've seen so many friends that do this, and they get 10 years down the road, and it's like, oh my gosh, how did I end up here? What is going on right now? If only I could go back and change the choices I started making in high school, even before high school. And I will absolutely say, by God's grace, there's never too far there's never too far gone from God's grace, from God's goodness in your life. Never is there too far. But imagine that you had that. I watched Cinderella with my daughter, who's 3, the other day. I don't watch it just by myself for fun.
Cartoon version.
Both, actually. The Christian Bale version of Cinderella. That's not true. And, the fairy godmother bippity-boppity-boos her into a pumpkin, right? And things change and become magical. So imagine that you get 10 years down the road and you have the opportunity to just rewind 10 years. Let's pretend that just happened. Let's pretend that maybe you're making choices now that could be changed, and you could change the trajectory and where you're headed for the next 10 years. This just may be the opportunity for some of you to change choices you're making, change directions that you're headed. By God's grace, to change that. So, praying for you guys as we dive into that. Relationships always impact our faith, for good or for bad. They always impact our faith. So I showed you a Batman quote that was actually a Rachel quote, and I'm going to share you a quote from the Bible that's actually a different quote. And this is where things get a little weird, I think, but it's great. This is, do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good morals. I want to give some background on this. This is from 1 Corinthians 15:33. Anyone know who wrote the letter to the Corinthian church, which is this book? Paul wrote it. Now, you'll notice that we were intentional to put quotations around bad company corrupts good morals. Paul was talking to the Corinthian church. And what had happened, if you look earlier in this chapter, they're questioning the resurrection. So they're questioning whether or not we as humans, if there's something after this life. What was happening to the Corinthian church is they had on one side, they had the Greeks who lived a very hedonistic life. So hedonism is the pursuit of whatever makes you happy. That's like the highest good, is if you're pursuing what makes you happy, that is the highest good you can achieve. Now, it doesn't take long for us to think about scenarios where that's a terrible thing. For people to pursue just generally, ambiguously, what makes you happy can be a terribly dangerous and harmful thing to that person and to the people around them. And that was where the Greeks were living. There's another quote in there, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. That was kind of like the saying of the Greeks. Like, just party it up. You're going to be in the ground soon anyway. So live your life as you want to. Anybody know anyone that lives that way, who may even say that, who's proud to live that way? And again, just pray for them, be available to them. And it's a hard lesson to watch. It's a hard lesson to see that unfold in somebody's life. So they had that on one side, and they denied the resurrection, both of just people in general, and by nature of denying that, they're denying the resurrection of Jesus. So Jesus lived a perfect life. He was one with God. He was the Son of God. He died on the cross. He was buried, and 3 days later, we celebrate this every Sunday, but especially at Easter, we remember those 3 days. He died on Friday, and he came back to life on Sunday. Without the resurrection, Paul says earlier in verse 15 that we are a people to be most pitied. Why is that? Because the Greeks are right if Jesus didn't come back from the dead. The Greeks are right that we should eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. In other words, everything is meaningless. Life is meaningless. And if not for the resurrection, that's technically true. But because of the resurrection, because God is God, because Jesus is the Son of God, because he's faithful, because he's good, because he's made a way to reconcile us back to the Father, that couldn't be farther from the truth. Life has meaning. Life has purpose. Christ gives you purpose. And that's to be in relationship with the Father. We can do questions later. Hang on, buddy. We'll talk after. Okay. On the other side, they had the Jews, the Sadducees. Now, why? There's a terrible joke. It's something like they didn't believe in the resurrection, and that's why they were sad. You see, terrible joke. But that is why they were sad. You see, they didn't believe in the resurrection, and essentially what you end up with is they were kind of the lawyers, the authority. You might call them like the intellectual moralists. So they sort of had like the guardrails around society, They taught the first 5 books of the Old Testament, but they did not believe in any resurrection. They didn't believe in any heaven, in any afterlife of any sort. They believed in the kind of classic Jewish Sheol, which is just basically a place of darkness where, again, sadducee. And so both sides, you had live or eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. And then you have basically just live a good moral life, but nothing matters. Is that not exactly where we are today? That's exactly where I see the church being impacted in huge ways on both sides, that nothing matters, so live life as you want. Or, yeah, nothing really matters, but by our will, by these guardrails we put around ourselves, we can kind of build a legacy for humanity. And humanity kind of becomes God. Humanity's like furthering humanity, and human progress becomes the thing that humans are all about. Which is essentially saying it's about man's glory in the long run. It's about man's glory. And the church is told that this is about God's glory. This is about delight in God. This is about loving God and loving people. And that's the outflow of God's grace and goodness in our lives. Turns into grace and goodness and love for the sake of others in their lives. And so Paul's coming to them and having this conversation with them. He's seeing them being changed. And my question for you right now is, in what ways are your friends changing you? Reflect on it, think on it. In what ways are my friends changing me? And that's not, sometimes they're like those gotcha questions like, ha, you're in trouble. That's not what this question is. It's really just asking, look at your friendships. Some of you have friendships that are changing you for God's glory. Some of you have friendships that are pouring God's grace and goodness into you as they are walking in the Spirit. And that's good. That's a wonderful thing. I have those friends, and I'm so grateful for them. Now, you may also have those friends that are impacting your faith for bad, impacting your life for bad. They're leading you in a direction that you don't want to go. Whether you know it or not now, you don't want to go that direction. So in what way are your friends changing you? Your friendships greatly influence the direction and quality of your life. They change where you're headed down the road. There's a trajectory. Imagine your life is like a ship, and any friend that you have is kind of pointing it a different direction. Now, it may seem small initially, but go years down the road, and where you would have ended up is often a completely different direction. Imagine even just in the size of this room, if I were to tie strings from the top of the ceiling across it. If the goal is to get from here all the way across to the middle, any slight deviation from the start, and we could end up in any spot in the room. And that's really what friends can do in your life. They send you off course in a different direction, or they send you back to Christ, back to His goodness. Proverbs 13:20. This verse gives us a promise, and a warning. A promise and a warning. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. Whoever walks with the wise will become wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. Imagine you guys need a backpack, right? You need a backpack to carry your books, what do you guys put in a backpack? School books. Calculator, pencils, stuff. I put stuff in my backpack. So imagine you go to the backpack store, and the backpack store clerk what's the backpack store clerk's name?
Jerry.
I was thinking
Silas. Jerry Silas. Jerry Silas is there, and he's selling backpacks. And he's like, hey, young man, I got 2 backpacks for you. He says, here, I got a green one for you. Who's buying the backpack? Nate Baker's buying the backpack. Buddy boy Nate Baker? I don't know why I have that voice, but that's my voice. I've got a green backpack right here, buddy. An auctioneer now. This green one, so there's a green one and there's an orange one, right? The green one, I'm like, hey, you got all these school books, and that's good. But if you buy this green backpack, you strap this bad boy on, you'll just absorb all the books you put in your backpack. Boom. Can you imagine how cool that would be? If you're like, I'm just a perfect student now because I got this really cool green backpack from Jerry Silas at the backpack store, and now I know everything. So you throw your backpack on, and they're like, but wait, I've also got this orange one, and this orange one, it won't make you smart if you put it on. It won't make you dumb, but it's going to hurt real bad. Are you going to buy it? Buddy boy Baker? He's not going to buy it. He shouldn't do it. You're a wise man. You're a wise man. Guys, this is essentially what the proverb is telling you. It's as simple as you can walk with the wise and become wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. Now, something that I think is really important to hone in on, it doesn't say the companion of fools will become foolish. It doesn't say the companion of fools is going to be a silly guy, or the companion of fools is going to be like the smartest guy of that group, because, hey, you surround yourself with fools, and you're the smartest dude in the room. Cheat codes, doesn't work. The companion of fools will suffer harm. You have a promise, you have a warning. The companion of fools will suffer harm. And again, you may argue with that. You may say, I'm not going to change. I'm not going to change by being around these people. That's not what it's saying. It may be true that for some people they won't change by being the companion of fools, but they will suffer harm. Why will they suffer harm? What a fool does, what a foolish person does, they go through life, they keep making the same choices, they keep finding themselves in the same situations, they keep finding themselves dissatisfied, hurt, angry, and they go back to it over and over again. Somewhere else in the Bible it talks about a dog returning to its own vomit. That's kind of what a fool does. They keep going back to it. Now, if your friends are eating their own vomit, they're going to be a little stinky. That's gross. We shouldn't do that. A fool finds themselves living as though this moment is separate from every other moment. Like, where I am today isn't because of yesterday. A fool may even say, where I am today is only because of what's happened to me. I'm not responsible for where I am today. There are absolutely things that impact you that were not your choice. Absolutely. There are things that impact you, that break you, that hurt, that are outside of your life, that come into your life. But then there are the choices that you make that continue to lead you back to brokenness time and time again, as if it's going to help, as if it's going to make life better, and it just doesn't. It doesn't matter how many times you go back to that thing, it's not going to improve your life. And if you're surrounding yourself with people that make choices like that, who say, my choices from last year have nothing to do with where I am today. And the choices I'm making today have nothing to do with where I'll be tomorrow. Things will change. They'll magically just, boom, get better. If you surround yourself with that, you inevitably come to harm. And again, I think of a story just popped in my head of friends that I had who, things like riding on the back of a car through like dirt roads and stuff, and one of them falls off and gets major brain injury and is changed for life because his friends have these habits of making foolish choices. So many thoughts, so many different relationships and friendships that I can think of where, you look at somebody's friends and you can see, here's the quality of your life now, and here's the direction that you're headed, and it's brokenness. It's you suffering harm because of the friends that you're choosing to surround yourself with in your life. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. So, again, continue to come back to who are your friends, what are they leading you to? Maybe for some of you, someone pops in your head when I say that. Who are your friends, where are they leading you to? For some of you, that person that pops in your head is somebody you probably need to distance yourself from. And I know it's hard, and I remember in high school it feels like, oh my gosh, this is life. Like I've got this is what I have. That's changing my life. That's something I don't want to lose. High school's fast, you guys. High school's super fast. You're through it. And then suddenly you're into being an ancient 24-year-old, right? There's a lot of life ahead of you. There's a lot of life ahead of you after high school. Life's, in many ways, not even started until after high school. A lot of life ahead of you. So who are your friends? What are they leading you to? Here again, these verses, just together. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. Do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals. I told you earlier that was Paul quoting somebody else, right? It's interesting because Paul, he was quoting a man named Menander. He was a Greek, basically like a Greek poet, right? So he would write these comedy plays. And you ever seen in movies where they show comedies and it's like, that's not funny. I guess it was funny back then, or maybe comedy meant something different. But he wrote this play about this woman named Thais. Can you guys say that, Thais? It's kind of a fun, it's a Thais, Thais. You feel smart when you say it. One syllable cool words. Thais. Now, Thais was a real woman. And there was this story that was written about her And basically, Menander writes this story where he's saying, he's describing this woman as beautiful, as attractive, as gifted in music, as intelligent, all these like positive things. And then it's like, and she'll pretend to love you, but she loves nobody. She's manipulative. Basically, this is a dangerous relationship. And there's that constant pursuit, and the man in the story is going back to her. And then it ends with that quote, "Bad company ruins good morals." And it's just fascinating to me that Paul was engaging the church using the wisdom of the world to say, even they know that when you surround yourself with people who are bad company, your trajectory gets ruined. If even the world knows that, and wisdom and truth, no matter where they come from, are ultimately sourced in God. God is the ultimate source of truth, the ultimate source of goodness, and by his grace, everybody has a little bit of that in them. Everybody has a little bit of that, I can do what's morally right. Now, by our choice, by our sin, we are all sinful. We are all lost. We're all in need of God's grace. It's that common grace through us that even the world is able to talk about wisdom. And Paul's saying, even they know bad company ruins good morals. So again, I know I'm coming back to it again and again and again, but this is what I want for you guys. When I say bad company, does someone come to mind? When I say bad company, does someone pop into your mind as here's that relationship, here's that person in my life who would be considered bad company? I want to be really, really clear that this person, whoever pops into your mind, they are a creation of God as well. They are loved by God. I would encourage you to pray for them. I would encourage you to be available for them. But there's something about the circle of influence that you have in your life. If you were to draw some circles, however many you wanted to draw, and at the center is your closest people. Maybe it's your family. Maybe it's a family member that you've grown up knowing. Maybe it's a friend from church. Maybe it's a leader from church. Somebody who you say, that person's in my life, and they are influential, and when I'm with them, my guard's down. Now, some of you, that person who's influential, and when you're with them, your guard is down, that person is pouring poison into your life. And you have to be willing to say, I'm going to put distance between you and me. And for both, you're good. For both, you're good. What I don't want to encourage is this attitude of, well, they're a sinner. I'm better than them. I'm going to kick them out of my circle. No, I think contrary to that, within this group, if you guys have identified, here are my friends that are building me up, that are encouraging me, that are pouring God's goodness into my life, that are a reflection of Christ, and they do things that are worth modeling after. They show kindness when they have every right to be angry. They show grace when they have every right to be judgmental. If you have friends like that, thank God for that. Those are providential relationships. Those are people that God's placed in your life for your blessing and for his glory. What I would encourage you to do is, whatever that circle is, make room. Make room for others to come into that circle, for them to experience the grace and goodness of Christ through you guys. I think for those people, and again, some of the people who need to find room, who need to find those friendships, who are going to be that godly influence, that godly, here's shaping your life. People who are looking for that, maybe trying to get out of those friendships, those relationships where they're being influenced by someone who doesn't have any integrity. Someone who doesn't have integrity will gladly encourage you to lie and to manipulate, in whatever category that looks like. Someone who doesn't care about sexual purity will encourage you to use others and to be used by others in that way. Someone who doesn't care about showing love and grace to others will encourage you to be judgmental and elitist towards others. But again, a godly friend, you guys, I am so thankful for the godly friends that I have. I'm so thankful for the people who are willing to speak truth when I need to hear it. I'm so grateful for the people who are willing to listen when I need somebody that'll just listen. I'm so grateful for the people that I get to grow with and experience life with. There's tremendous value in that. They're irreplaceable. Somebody that I could not live life without those friends in my life. So I think some application I definitely want to ask you guys if you have a friend like this. If you have a friend that has that kind of closeness, transparency, points you to God, is a grace in your life, a gift from God to you. Or is there room in your circle to be this friend? And again, for some of you, this really may be a moment of God's grace in your life where something's coming to your mind and you're saying, I do need to make a choice. I do need to make a choice to follow God's grace, to follow God's goodness, to take a different direction in my life, in my relationships. And so be bold in your faith. Take this seriously. You can't have that magical moment where you meet your fairy godmother and go back 10 years. There is no bippity boppity boo, as fun as that would be. I don't want you to have to look back and have regret after regret because you were in places you had no business being. But for you to be able to look back and instead have joyful memory after joyful memory because of the friends that God's brought you, because of the way that God's poured His grace into your life. I would encourage you guys to remember that relationships always impact our faith for good or for bad. We're going to sing another song, if you guys would stand. And bear with the awkward silence as I walk over there.